At the firm, where sharp focus and flawless execution are non-negotiable, Ethan finds himself struggling to concentrate. Case files blur together, legal arguments slip through his memory, and exhaustion drags him down like quicksand. His nights are restless, haunted by images of Madison and Ryan, leaving him drained before the workday even begins. During one pivotal case, he misfiles critical documents, nearly jeopardizing a client's defense. The error earns him a sharp rebuke from his superior, who warns him that his promising future may already be slipping. The shame is unbearable. He worked so hard to prove himself, yet now he's stumbling at the very moment he should be rising. At home, his mother, Laura, senses his unraveling. She urges him to open up, to let her in, but Ethan feels shackled by shame. To admit the truth would mean confessing not only the betrayal, but his own blindness, his foolish trust. So he hides behind vague reassurances, telling her he's just tired, that work is stressful. In truth, he has begun numbing himself with alcohol, drinking more than he ever did before, hoping each glass might quiet the storm in his chest. Instead, it only isolates him further. The bond with his mother, once his lifeline, starts to fray under the weight of his silence. Just when Ethan thinks he has reached the bottom, the wound is ripped open again. Scrolling through social media late one night, he sees them, Madison and Ryan, not hiding, not ashamed, but together. Photos surface of the two at bars, their arms around each other, laughing as though nothing has been broken, as though Ethan never existed. The sight guts him. The betrayal is no longer a secret shame, it is public, displayed like a trophy. To everyone else, they look like a carefree new couple. To Ethan, it is confirmation that the bond he thought was sacred was discarded without hesitation. Rage flickers, but more than that, self-doubt creeps in. He begins to wonder if maybe he was the problem. Was he too consumed by work? Too absent? Too safe compared to Ryan's reckless charm? Each question eats away at him, feeding the bitterness festering inside. Nights become unbearable. He lies awake staring at the ceiling, mind racing, heart heavy, insomnia grinding down what little strength he has left. His journal fills with darker entries, not just grief but sharp edges of anger, words he barely recognizes as his own. Drinking becomes more frequent, less about numbing and more about escaping entirely. The spiral tightens, dragging him deeper into isolation and despair. Where once he was a man with a clear path, career, love, friendship, now he feels hollow, a shadow stumbling through his days. The stakes rise with each passing week, as Ethan teeters on the edge of breaking completely, his foundation gone, his identity unraveling. The betrayal is no longer just an event, it is a slow, consuming fire threatening to destroy everything left of him. It happens on a night Ethan never expected. He almost doesn't go to the birthday gathering, telling himself he's too tired, too busy, but in truth, he's been avoiding his old circle for months. Against his better judgment, he shows up, hoping maybe for a taste of normalcy. The bar is loud, filled with the laughter of friends he hasn't seen in ages, and for a fleeting second, Ethan feels like he belongs again. Then he sees them. Madison and Ryan walk in together, hand in hand, as though they are the natural couple, the ones who fit. Ryan spots Ethan first, and to Ethan's disbelief, a smug smile spreads across his face, as if time has healed everything, as if betrayal can be brushed away like spilled beer. Madison, on the other hand, avoids Ethan's gaze, her eyes darting anywhere but his, though guilt flickers across her face like a shadow she cannot hide. For Ethan, the room tilts. Months of silence, of swallowed rage, of festering wounds rise to the surface. He can't contain it anymore. Standing in the middle of the party, with half the room watching, Ethan's voice cuts through the noise. "You didn't just steal her," he says, his tone trembling with years of suppressed fury. "You stole my trust. My family. My sanity." The bar falls silent. Glasses pause mid-air. Every face turns toward him. And for the first time since that night, Ethan doesn't care who sees his pain. He lays it bare, raw and unfiltered, a wound displayed in public. The silence stretches, heavy and uncomfortable, until laughter breaks it, not mocking, but nervous, from a girl in their circle who has clearly had too much to drink. "Oh, come on, Ethan," she slurs, shaking her head. "Ryan wasn't even the first." The words hang in the air, barely absorbed at first, then slicing through the tension like a blade. Ethan freezes. The girl rambles on, oblivious to the devastation she's unleashing. She admits that Madison had confided in her once, during a drunken night months before Ryan was ever involved, that there had been someone else, a brief fling Madison swore meant nothing. The crowd shifts uneasily, eyes darting between Ethan and Madison, waiting for someone to deny it. But Madison doesn't. Her face tightens, shame rippling across her features, and her silence is the only confirmation Ethan needs. His heart lurches. The betrayal he thought he understood was only the surface. It wasn't about his long hours at work, or him being distracted, or Ryan being irresistible. Madison was never faithful. Ryan wasn't the first, just the final straw, the one betrayal that broke him most because it came from both lover and brother. In that instant, the story Ethan has been telling himself crumbles. He wasn't inadequate. He wasn't unworthy. He was deceived again and again by someone who never valued what he gave. And the cruelty is that he had blamed himself for months, carrying shame that was never his to bear. The weight of this realization detonates inside Ethan, leaving him gutted but strangely lighter. He looks around the room, the shocked faces, Ryan's uncomfortable smirk fading, Madison's downcast eyes, and something in him snaps. He doesn't want explanations. He doesn't want apologies. The years of loyalty, of love, of trust he poured into Madison and Ryan cannot be undone, and he refuses to stand in the ruins any longer. "You didn't just betray me," he says, voice shaking but clear. "You erased me. But I see you now, for what you really are." The words are not shouted this time, but spoken with a finality that slices deeper than rage. Then he storms out, pushing past the stunned crowd into the night air. The cool wind hits him like water after drowning, sharp and bracing. For months he has carried the question, "What did I do wrong?" like an anchor. Tonight, the answer comes like fire. It was never him. It was never his fault. Madison's unfaithfulness was not a reflection of his worth, but of her choices. Ryan's betrayal was not proof that Ethan wasn't enough, but proof that Ryan was never truly a brother. The realization doesn't erase the pain, but it strips away the lie that chained him. For the first time since the world collapsed, Ethan feels a flicker of release. He is devastated, yes, but the devastation is different now. It is no longer laced with self-blame. It is grief, pure and untainted, the kind that can heal. As he walks alone through the city streets, his chest still raw, his steps are heavier than ever but somehow freer. The lie is gone. The truth, though cruel, has set him on a new path, one where healing, not self-destruction, might finally begin. In the weeks following the explosive revelation, Ethan finally admits that he cannot carry. At first, he struggles to speak, his words stumble, his throat tightens, but slowly, with each session, the dam begins to crack. He unravels the knot of betrayal, grief, and shame, confronting the false narratives he carried for too long. Therapy gives him language for what he endured and, more importantly, permission to stop blaming himself. At home, his mother notices the shift. For the first time in months, Ethan allows himself to sit at her kitchen table and actually talk, not in vague reassurances, but in truth. He doesn't give her every detail, but enough for her to understand the weight he's been carrying. Laura doesn't judge, doesn't push, she simply listens, her hand steady on his. That quiet acceptance reminds Ethan that not all bonds betray. Parallel to his emotional healing, he throws himself into his work not as a distraction, but as a way to reclaim his focus. Long nights at the firm begin to pay off. When he lands a major case win, the recognition from his superiors feels like proof that his future is not defined by what he lost, but by what he is still capable of achieving. Each step forward is small, but together they form a rhythm, one that starts to sound like a life worth living again. For months, Ethan imagined different confrontations with Ryan, scenarios where he exposed him, humiliated him, or demanded answers that could never truly heal. But over time, as therapy softens his bitterness and as victories at work remind him of his worth, the desire for revenge fades. He realizes that seeking to wound Ryan would only tether him further to the betrayal, keeping him chained to a past that no longer deserves his energy. So Ethan chooses silence. With a final act of clarity, he deletes Ryan's number, blocks Madison's profiles, and cuts off every thread that once bound them to him. There are no dramatic declarations, no burning letters or symbolic gestures, just the quiet, deliberate act of refusing to give them space in his life. That choice, more than any outburst could have, empowers him. For the first time, Ryan and Madison's existence does not dictate his state of mind. They are no longer the center of his world, no longer ghosts haunting his nights. The release is not instant, but each day without their presence strengthens him. Ethan learns that letting go isn't about forgiving or forgetting, it's about reclaiming his own time, his own thoughts, his own peace. Where once he would scroll through social media searching for glimpses of their life together, now he leaves his phone untouched, his mornings beginning not with comparison but with clarity. The silence he once dreaded has become his ally, a space for healing rather than punishment. One evening, Ethan sits cross-legged on the floor of his apartment, a box of old photos spread out before him. For a long time, he just stares at the vacations, the birthdays, the blurred selfies full of smiles that now feel staged. His hands shake as he begins tearing them, piece by piece, into jagged fragments. Ryan's laugh, Madison's kiss, the three of them huddled close, it all shreds into silence. But when he reaches the last photo, one stops him. It's not of Madison, not of Ryan, just him. A younger Ethan, smiling at a barbecue, sunlight in his hair, eyes bright with hope. He pauses, his chest tightening. This was him before the lies, before betrayal carved its mark. Carefully, he sets that one photo aside, smoothing its edges as though protecting it. That image becomes a reminder not of what he lost, but of what still remains, himself. He sweeps the rest of the scraps into a trash bag and ties it shut. The sound of it hitting the bin is strangely final, like a door closing. For the first time, the weight of the past feels lighter, as if by tearing away their faces, he has cleared space for his own. The next morning, Ethan holds Madison's ring in his palm. She had left it behind casually, like an afterthought, as though their years together could be discarded with a trinket. For weeks he kept it tucked away in a drawer, unsure what to do. Now, he slips it into a small envelope along with a handwritten note. May this bring someone freedom, not chains. His handwriting is steady, each word a vow not to let bitterness dictate his actions. At the post office, he addresses it to a local women's shelter and slides it across the counter. The clerk barely glances at it, but to Ethan, the gesture is monumental. The ring no longer belongs to a story of betrayal, it becomes part of someone else's chance at safety, at new beginnings. Walking back into the sunlight, he exhales a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The air feels cleaner, the city quieter, as though the act of letting go has shifted something inside him. For the first time, his steps feel purposeful, untethered by the past. That evening, Ethan finds himself at a small cafe overlooking the ocean. He orders a black coffee, carries it to a corner table, and sits where the glass window frames the horizon. The sea moves with its eternal rhythm, waves rising and falling, indifferent to human heartbreak. He watches, not with longing, but with calm. His journal rests on the table, closed not because he has nothing left to write, but because for once, he doesn't need to. The silence is no longer suffocating, it is steady, peaceful, alive with possibility. He takes a sip of coffee, the bitter warmth grounding him, and whispers to himself, "They didn't break me. They freed me." The words are not triumphant, not shouted, but spoken like a truth finally accepted. Outside, the sun dips lower, painting the water in streaks of gold and crimson. Ethan leans back in his chair, watching the day close with quiet steadiness. He doesn't smile widely, doesn't cry, just breathes, steady and sure. The world stretches ahead, uncertain but open, and for the first time in a long time, he feels ready to walk into it alone. Fade out.